Okay, so let's picture this. It's April 14th, 2025. We're in Hisar, Haryana, and there's this real palpable buzz in the air.
Right. A big event happening.
Exactly. Prime Minister Modi is holding this huge rally. It's Dr. Ambedkar's birth anniversary. But, it wasn't just a political rally, was it?
No, not at all. It was layered, really cleverly done, I thought. More than just a speech.
Yeah. How so?
Oh, well, you had the political address, obviously, but then they also used it as a moment for other things, launching initiatives, kind of setting a narrative.
Right. Like the airport terminal.
Exactly. They laid the foundation stone for the new terminal at Maharaja Agrasen Airport. Big project over, what, 410 crore
Yeah,
rupees?
that's right. And wasn't there something about a flight, too?
Yes, they flagged off the first flight from Hisar straight to Ayodhya.
Wow. Okay. So infrastructure and the sort of cultural connection happening at the same time.
Precisely. It felt quite deliberate, linking development, aspiration, even faith, maybe, all in one event.
It definitely suggests a bigger picture, a strategy beyond just, getting applause at a rally.
Absolutely. And that's really what we want to get into today, right?
Yes, exactly. This is our deep dive into what actually happened there, what the key messages were. We really want to unpack Modi's critique of Congress, which was pretty sharp.
Mm-hmm. And how he invoked Ambedkar's legacy, which is always significant on his birth anniversary.
And then connect it all back to these tangible things like the airport and this broader idea of inclusive growth.
So we're trying to figure out the core arguments, understand the context, basically get beyond the headlines.
Right. We know people want to get the essence quickly, but also thoroughly. Life's busy. So our aim is to pull out the really crucial bits, give some clarity, maybe even surface a few surprising facts without, drowning everyone in information.
It's about understanding the messages, but also maybe the political crafting behind them.
Okay, let's dive right in then. That critique of Congress. He really went for it, didn't he?
He did. The central accusation was pretty stark. He basically said that during their rule, Congress treated SC, ST, and OBC communities as, quote, second-class citizens.
That's a heavy charge. What did he mean by that, specifically, in historical terms?
Well, according to his narrative, it meant limited access. Limited access to education, to jobs, even just basic dignity. He painted a picture of systemic disadvantage.
I remember that analogy he used. Something about opening a bank account.
Yeah, that was striking. He said for someone from these communities, trying to open an account back then was like trying to get an audience with a Bollywood star. Basically impossible.
Okay, maybe a bit of hyperbole there, but it gets the point across, that feeling of exclusion.
It does. It taps into that historical reality of financial exclusion being a major barrier for, well, for generations.
And then he pivoted, right, to contrast it with his government's actions.
Exactly. That's where the Yandan Yojana came in, launched back in 2014. He positioned it as the big game changer.
The financial inclusion scheme.
Right. Opening up the banking system. He threw out some big numbers. Over 50 crore accounts opened by 2025.
500 million. Wow.
Yeah. And he emphasized that a large chunk belonged to SC, ST, and OBC individuals, and the deposits, over 2 lakh crore rupees in those accounts.
You mentioned the RuPay cards too, didn't he? People actually using the system.
Mm-hmm. Creating this image of empowerment, accessing the formal economy, finally.
Now, critics might say just having an account doesn't instantly mean you're wealthy, right? Access isn't everything.
That's a very valid point, and analysts do make it. Access is step one, but it doesn't automatically fix deep-seated economic inequality.
Sure, but you can see the narrative he's building. It's about rewriting the rules, positioning his government as the one that finally opened the doors.
Absolutely. The message is we broke from that exclusionary past. We're delivering inclusion now.
Okay, so moving on, but still connected. Ambedkar's legacy. Given the date, it was obviously central. But again, Modi's take was, well, pointed.
Very pointed. It wasn't just paying homage. He directly accused Congress of disrespecting Ambedkar, actively disrespecting him.
How so? What were the specifics there?
He mentioned alleged incidents like Congress supposedly engineering Ambedkar's election defeats in 1952 and 54.
Right, I remember reading about those elections.
And he didn't stop there. He suggested they tried to sort of bury his legacy, minimize his importance over the years, almost erase him.
That's a really strong claim, a conspiracy almost.
It is. Now, the history between Ambedkar and Congress is, well, it's complicated, isn't it?
Definitely not simple. There were real disagreements.
Absolutely. Significant disagreements. Ambedkar did face political opposition, and electoral losses happened. His relationship with the Congress leadership was often quite tense.
You just have to look at his resignation from Nehru's cabinet in '51. That tells you something.
Exactly. He cited major policy differences. So while maybe the orchestrated defeat claim is debatable, the friction, the difficult relationship that's historically documented.
And then Modi contrasted this alleged Congress behavior with what the BJP has done.
Yes, he positioned the BJP as Ambedkar's true champions. He highlighted things like the Ambedkar International Center, various memorials, tangible projects.
It's a clear attempt to claim that legacy, isn't it? To align the BJP with Ambedkar's moral authority.
For sure. It's strategically important, especially for reaching out to Dalit communities and other marginalized groups. These memorials are powerful symbols.
It is fascinating how, these days, pretty much all parties want to be seen as upholding Ambedkar's vision.
It really shows the enduring power of his ideas, doesn't it? His fight for social justice resonates so deeply across the political spectrum.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. He also talked about the Waqf Act amendments.
Mhm.
Can you just quickly remind us what Waqf properties are?
Sure. Essentially, they're charitable endowments under Islamic law, assets donated for religious or charitable purposes managed by Waqf boards. The recent amendments aim to streamline how they're governed.
Right. Better management, theoretically.
That's the stated goal. Improve efficiency, accountability. But like many things, it's generated quite a bit of debate.
And Modi's take on the opposition to these amendments.
He was very direct. He accused Congress of opposing the changes purely to appease, quote, extremists.
Okay. And he argued this opposition actually hurt who?
Ordinary Muslims, he claimed, specifically mentioning the poor, the Pasmanda community, women, children. He framed the reforms as being for their benefit.
So the argument was that the amendments would protect the properties better and make sure the benefits reached the truly needy.
That was the line, yes, protecting Waqf sanctity and ensuring rights. He then went further, posing that question.
Ah, the one about the Congress leadership.
Yeah. Why has Congress never had a Muslim party president or fielded more Muslim candidates? A direct challenge to their credentials on representing Muslim interests.
Interesting. What's the reality on that? Has Congress had Muslim leaders?
Well, yes, they've had prominent Muslim leaders throughout their history, but it is factually true they haven't had a Muslim party president. As for candidates, the numbers vary. In 2019, for the Lok Sabha, it was around 7% Muslim candidates for Congress. So it's not zero, but the president point stands.
Got it. So it's a nuanced picture. And the Waqf amendments themselves, people are divided.
Definitely. Supporters say it curbs mismanagement, maybe corruption. Critics worry about government overreach, centralization of control over what are essentially religious community assets. Strong feelings on both sides.
Okay. Another hot topic he touched on. The Uniform Civil Code, the UCC.
Right. The idea of one set of personal laws for everyone, marriage, divorce, inheritance, regardless of religion.
And Modi's point was?
That the Constitution envisioned a UCC. It's in the directive principles, but Congress, quote, never implemented it. He framed it as a failure of will.
And he contrasted that with?
Uttarakhand, where the BJP government did implement a UCC in 2024. He held that up as a positive example, a step towards fulfilling that constitutional goal.
How's that working out in Uttarakhand? Any early signs?
Well, it standardizes the laws as intended, but it's still relatively new. And like the Waqf issue, it's controversial. There are ongoing discussions and mixed reactions on the ground.
And Modi called Congress's hesitation on UCC cowardice, I think.
Yes, that was the framing. But again, it's complex. Supporters of UCC see it as promoting equality and national unity. Critics worry about eroding cultural diversity and religious freedom. Congress historically preferred a more consensus-driven approach on such sensitive reforms.
It really feels like all these points, Congress, Ambedkar, Waqf, UCC, are being woven together into a larger story.
Definitely. And a big, visible part of that story, especially there in Hisar, was infrastructure, particularly airports.
Yeah, he really hammered that point about airports driving inclusive growth.
He did. He brought back that promise, the one about even those wearing slippers getting to fly. It's a powerful image.
And he had the stats to back it up, right? The increase in airports.
Yeah, quite impressive numbers. From 74 airports in 2014 to over 150 now. And the UDAN scheme connecting almost 90 smaller towns and cities.
Making air travel seem less elite, more accessible.
That's the narrative. And the new terminal in Hisar, that 410 crore project, was presented as proof. boosting connectivity, creating jobs, raising aspirations in Haryana.
And linking it to Ayodhya with that first flight adds another layer, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It weaves in that cultural, maybe even religious pride alongside the economic development message. It's quite skillful.
Though I suppose some might argue airports don't solve poverty directly. Maybe rural roads are more critical for some.
That's a fair counter-argument. Airports alone aren't the solution to everything, and basic rural infra is vital. But the symbolism of air travel becoming more common, reaching smaller places, that carries a lot of weight.
Yeah, it taps into that desire for progress, for upward mobility.
Exactly, a sense that development is reaching beyond just the big metros.
So if we try to pull all these threads together,
Mm.
what's the single overarching message Modi was trying to send from Hisar that day?
I think it boils down to a stark contrast. On one side, Ambedkar's vision of equality, allegedly betrayed by Congress through decades of what he called vote bank politics.
Right. Can you just quickly define vote bank politics?
Sure, it generally refers to appealing to specific communities based on caste or religion with targeted promises or rhetoric, aiming to secure their votes as a bloc, often seen critically as divisive or transactional.
Okay. So Congress's alleged vote bank politics on one side and on the other.
His government's approach, presented as delivering genuine social justice for all, through universal schemes, infrastructure, and upholding Ambedkar's true legacy. That's the narrative.
Of course, critics would say the BJP engages in identity politics too, just maybe differently.
That's often pointed out. Identity is definitely part of their strategy, but their argument is often that universal schemes like Yandan or Housing for All aim to transcend those old divisions, while their focus is on a unified national identity.
And amidst all this political messaging, the reality on the ground. Poverty rates might be falling, but inequality, caste discrimination, those issues haven't vanished.
No, unfortunately not. And that brings us back to Ambedkar's vision. It wasn't just about economic opportunity, was it? It was fundamentally about dignity, about social equality. A bank account, an airport. They're important, perhaps, but they're maybe just the start of that much deeper transformation he envisioned.
So wrapping up this deep dive on the Hisar rally, the key takeaways seem pretty clear. A strong critique of Congress's past.
A very specific framing of Ambedkar's legacy, positioning the BJP as its rightful heir.
Debates around Waqf and UCC brought to the forefront.
And that consistent linkage between big infrastructure like the airport and this promise of inclusive growth for everyone.
And throughout our chat, we've seen just how complex these issues are. Lots of different perspectives, lots of history involved.
Definitely. It's never black and white. Understanding these things requires looking at them from multiple angles.
Which brings us to maybe a final thought for everyone listening. Thinking about everything we've touched on, the policies, the history, the symbols like airports, what does it actually mean to create, I don't know, a truly fair and just society in a country as incredibly diverse and fast-changing as India?
That's a big question. It goes beyond just the politics or the economics, doesn't it? It's about fundamental values, how we see each other, how we build community.
Something to maybe mull over. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive today. Hopefully it shed some light on that significant event in Hisar.
Hope so too. Until next time.